So today we are going to meet with Lorraine Hunt, founder of AI Automation Department, where she helps HR teams and people teams to use AI and automation to work smarter and spend more time on people, which I think everybody would love. I'm super excited to talk about this. This is close to my heart. Lorraine brings over 3 decades of hands-on HR and learning development experience and is known for practical people-first implementation to support a healthier, more sustainable way of working, which we are all about here. We're delighted to have you here to explore how open dialogue and smarter support and fresh ideas and maybe pitfalls in AI can improve workplace well-being and bring out the best of people. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for such a brilliant introduction.
I'm very excited. I can see the problems with AI, but I can see so many opportunities for HR teams. And at Kara, we're exploring how can we help, with this. But for HR, what are the strongest opportunities in AI for the team?
For me, it's around HR professionals freeing up their time so that they can really focus on the things that matter to them and that matter to their organisation. And so it's looking at being really, really creative with how they can use AI. Think about the typical pain points that they have, the things that are quite repetitive, the things that they might not enjoy. And for me, having worked in HR for such a long time now, a lot of HR people tell me they want to be more strategic. So actually, if they can spend less time doing all of the admin, all of the reporting, all of the things that bog them down, they can be more strategic. And actually, if they're not too sure what that means, they can learn how to be more strategic using AI. The opportunities, I can't just give you a list. I really can't. It's only limited by your imagination.
Yeah.
It's also a worry as well, actually.
Yes. What about the well-being part? Do you see any specific strategies for improving well-being in the company?
You've got 2 sides of that. I'll start off with the practical elements that can really help HR people here. One of the questions that you had was around, with HR teams being buried in admin, it leaves them less time to have conversations, etc. So you asked about, practical terms. And for me, it's things like AI can help draft occupational health or doctor referrals. If we rely on our memory alone, often things get missed. It can turn those notes that we've made, etc., into something that's a really clear, concise report with relevant questions that we need to ask the professionals to help people get back into work. You've got other things. Here in the UK, we have reasonable adjustments that we need to make for people. Well, we might be quite stuck. What does that actually mean? Actually, if we feed that information, and we need to bear in mind that it could ultimately be public, so we don't want to be putting names, etc. But if we talk about an employee in terms of what their job role is, the tasks that they have, maybe what their disabilities are or their limitations are, AI might be able to help us come up with creative ideas. Not necessarily just for HR, that could be for managers as well. Other things like analysing absence patterns, even such things as, if you do not know your local wellbeing resources, ask AI. You live in XYZ town. Can you give me a list of wellbeing resources that could help me? It can match recommendations, etc., helplines, policy documents, and all of those things, instead of having to search through lots and lots of information. Or if you already have lots of information on, say, a staff intranet, you could ask it to consolidate that down into one page. Meeting notes, summaries. If you're doing employee surveys, you can ask it to extract the wellbeing elements out of that. It can highlight themes, problems with workplace stress, too much overtime, poor management behaviours, team morale issues, all of those things. Clarifying policies and what that actually means to people might be something else. But there's some of the practical elements, and I could talk about so many more, but I'm conscious of time.
I think this is very helpful for HR managers. I use it also to compare strategies. I found a few and I'm like, how are they different? And maybe consolidate this into one.
Brainstorming.
Yes.
It's great for it. If you've got a particular issue with an employee, you could brainstorm around, in particular, the wellbeing elements of it. As you've said, and what you've hinted at is getting a bit more strategic with it as well. And that's something, looking at priorities for HR leaders, even for managers, actually. The caveat around all of this has to be that if you are using AI elements in something, it is about being transparent. It's about making sure that people are always ethical and that certain things are built on trust. So if you are using platforms that are AI driven, which there's some brilliant things that are starting to become available now, it's about looking into those platforms to make sure that they've got everything that you need for them. But it's things like preventing burnout before it hits.
Exactly.
Analysing patterns, early warning signs. Are people rising workloads? A manager's left the business. What's that doing to the team? Those kind of things.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the biggest impacts that you've got. But it is also about psychological safety and using it for those ways. There are some AI platforms now, and I don't know whether I agree with this, to be clear. They will analyse Slack messages or Teams messages across an organisation to see whether there's any toxic patterns, whether there's any well-being, etc. I'm really in a bit of a dilemma about that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure our security policies hold up still on
I
those.
agree. I completely agree. It's things like building up resilience. AI could help individuals, managers build up resilience. They can help managers have conversations that managers are not always so great at doing.
I also heard managers shouldn't have a lot of team members below them, but I heard about someone that kept in the chat all the one-on-one notes. So they would say, okay, can you, resume from our last meeting what we were going to discuss next and what I was going to do in the meantime, just almost like a journaling system.
Yeah, as long as they're not using names and everything, that is a great reminder. Something that I suggested to a manager the other week, actually, very, very silly. They had a paid version of ChatGPT. So they set up an automatic reminder because they wasn't particularly good at doing it on a weekly basis to check in with their staff. And let's face it, sometimes that happens. Their priority wasn't to check in with their staff. So if on a weekly basis they received an email from ChatGPT that told them don't forget to check in, at least they could do that.
Yes. Personalities of people will use this differently. I mean, this is probably going to support their weak side of things.
And it's so interesting seeing how people do use it. And there are some horror stories, as I'm sure.
Of course. We as a wellbeing company are really scared of this as being a support system for people that are sick, because it's always going to be on your side and not ask questions that therapists actually ask. And it might get better, but right now there's no empathy. It's just a machine, We were discussing before we went on, we were talking about data in and data out a little bit, because what I've been reading around AI and HR is that HR managers are saying, our data is so all out there. It's a lot about people. It's private. We don't have a lot of actual data points. Maybe they have employee experience questionnaires, but that's just a point in time at that date. So they have, as a team, a history of not building a lot of clear data points. Yeah. And I'm wondering, are they asking you for help to do that with AI? Or that's, of course, something to do with strategy, to have some points.
Yes, for sure. What HR are great at is collecting data. What we're not so good, traditionally, there are some brilliant examples out there that people are doing it really well, is we're not very good at doing anything with that data. Personally, would I upload a load of data to ChatGPT? No, I don't think I would. I would anonymize certain things. However, there's a lot more that is happening around other things. So, for example, a lot of organizations use the Microsoft suite of products. Copilot, their version of AI, can be contained within what is already their system. So that would be a better workable solution for people. But there is a lot of reticence out there around data privacy. You don't need to put names, etc., 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 into it to get the information. What you need to understand is, what are the problems that I'm trying to solve? What data do I have already that can help me? And then how can AI help me analyze that data more effectively through how I am issuing the instructions or the things that I'm asking? And actually, if people don't know, one of the things that I've noticed, the biggest struggle is that people are saying, well, I don't know what to ask.
Yeah.
Ask AI.
Yeah.
This is my problem. This is what I think I'm trying to achieve. Tell me how I do that. And it will help. But yes, something that you mentioned earlier was about AI is very good at agreeing with us. So as HR professionals, we need to be quite critical, and we need to ask it to critically analyze and to be more human. Because when it does come to well-being, employee well-being, it can help you do a lot. But we've said it already, and apologies if I'm repeating myself, but it won't replace the human element of it.
No, of course not. And that's what we were, I think, talking about. We were setting in the idea that the AI will confer with you and not contradict you. And you had this brilliant quote to give it when you asked for feedback, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it is just as simple as, please do not agree with me. I want you to critically analyze and respond accordingly.
Yeah.
It's a machine. If we don't tell it that, it will tell you that all of your ideas are absolutely fabulous. And sometimes I have the most awful ideas, and AI has told me that they have been fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, it is about just helping. So let's take a manager as an example. You know, if AI flags that there might be an issue with sentiment, AI could then help those managers have better conversations. And it's those things around, well, okay, if you're analysing data and AI has highlighted a particular issue, well, the manager or HR could then step in with something simple like, I don't know, reallocating tasks or giving you ideas that you might not have thought about.
Usually, you know, when you work with HR managers, what is their question? Are they usually just really open? Can you help, you know, with whatever? Or do they have like more often a specific request in mind for you?
So people typically currently are falling into two camps. One, they will never use AI, and AI is not going to happen in their organization.
Okay.
It's a problem in itself, because I can guarantee at least 90% of their employees are using it as a shadow, using it, even if they have said no. Or they want to do all of the things and are overwhelmed with where to start or what to do effectively. And I would always say to people, don't try and do all of the things. I've been doing this for 2 years now, so I can go and know which system to use for what particular task or activity. If someone new to it were trying to do that, they would get overwhelmed and decide that I need to understand what the tool is. And it's not about the tool, it's about starting simply with just one thing, one HR process, one task, one activity, one tool, building up confidence before they then move on.
Yeah.
And it's also about, what's the worst it can do? Have a play, be creative, a couple of the examples that we've spoken about before, it's fantastic. But ultimately, we're on here to talk about well-being, employee well-being. It's about having that awareness of the impact that it could have to employees as well.
Yeah. Tell us one specific process that you have helped automate, just for them to, maybe have a little trick in the bag.
Oh, a few months ago now, I started working with a 200-person company. Basically, what I would always say to people, what are your typical issues? What are the problems? And what is it that you're trying to address? They had high turnover. Their annual survey had very, very low engagement scores. Managers, it was manufacturing, were more focused on production targets. And really, they was interested in getting the product out of the door, if I'm at all interested, rather than dealing with any struggling employees. So wellbeing really wasn't on the radar at all. And if I'm at all honest, and I'm obviously not going to name any names, but it would get to the point where people would just have to get on with things and would then ultimately leave, whether they had burnout, stress, etc., long work hours, etc. So one of the things that we looked at doing and using AI for, and I'm talking about generative AI, ChatGPT, Copilot, Perplexity, Claude, Gemini, one of those, we analysed absence patterns and sick leave frequency. Back in the day, I remember having to do that manually, counting on my fingers, toes, trying to work out percentage rates, etc. We then also looked at overtime hours and shift patterns as well. And what I'm trying to explain is I'm layering things on top here for this organisation. We looked at the survey responses and the things that people weren't saying, as well as the things that they were saying. And we looked at how many times managers were checking in with their employees, whether there were any one-to-ones completed, those kind of things on the system. So what AI could help in this particular occasion, it helped with identifying which areas were particularly under stress or difficulty, whether there were some burnout issues, whether there were things like increased sick days, excessive overtime, coupled with were the engagement scores low. Now, each one of those in its individual element is quite a lot of information. When you're feeding that in a structured way and sticking with it properly, using the right prompts, the right frameworks, etc., instead of waiting then for crisis to fall, people leaving, we have to replace the people, managers would receive weekly alerts indicating where there were issues for them that were coming up ahead, that probably in all likelihood, would I have identified that? Not necessarily that quick, to be fair. So it might say, so-and-so's worked X amount of additional hours this week. Why not get them to leave a couple of hours early on Friday? Or those small little things that have quite a huge impact to staff morale.
Yeah.
It might even say, you need to have a high performance conversation with this individual because their performance has dipped. We need to get them back on track. So it really is about looking at, the response times to support employees. And I don't know whether you've found that in the work that you do, that a lot of wellbeing initiatives could potentially be down to managers' lack of response quick enough. So that helped with that. Managers actually responded and followed through with things because we put a framework together to help them have the difficult conversations, or to actually, rather than HR producing, here's all of the data, through it, we would highlight things for them a lot quicker and a lot sooner. Employees started to feel a bit more heard, and I'm going over a period of now, this was probably tail end of last year, now that we started this, so probably 4 to 6 months, I would say realistically. Sick leave had started to slowly decrease for people because employees felt seen, they felt heard, they felt that things were being addressed, and there were less exit interviews. Now, whether that was time of the year or whether that was due to some of the initiatives, But certainly there was a lot less negativity that came out in those exit interviews than what had previously happened. So why did it work? And it won't work for every culture. This was manufacturing. They needed to get product out of the door. They didn't necessarily want to go down the touchy-feely route. If it was a different organization with a different set of unique issues, it might be something else that could help them with that. But it was practical. It was data-driven. We could align it to production targets, etc. And we could implement it in a way that those managers didn't feel like it was HR pushing this. It was done in a more supportive way.
Data can help a lot in conversations. Can you just tell the audience how you anonymized it? Did you just put numbers or?
Yeah, just put numbers. Really good point. Just put numbers, because in certain situations, so for example, with sickness absence data, we would put an age range in as well to see whether that had an impact. Male, female, areas, would then anonymize those areas rather than saying the frozen fruits division or the widget X division.
Yeah, exactly.
What meant something to me wouldn't necessarily mean something to somebody else.
Exactly.
It was triangulating a number of different things.
Yeah.
It wasn't just relying actually on one particular AI system. It was combining the strengths of a couple of different ones for that organization.
So possibly you're not just an AI consultant, you're more like, let's bring this data points as well, like a strategic data collection that starts working with trends that AI can help with, really.
I'm a HR person. I've spent the last few years more in L&D.
Yeah.
But HR has been my bread and butter for such a long time. It just so happened to be a bit of a techie geek and love what AI can do.
Yeah.
The other week, and I don't know whether I should even admit to this or not, but my fridge broke down and I asked AI how I could help fix my fridge. My daughter tells me that I'm relying way too much on AI and I'm going to lose my brain cells. She fundamentally disagrees that I'm doing what I'm doing, but if I don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. It's here. It is the way of the world. And I think for HR people not to embrace this brilliant piece of toolkit that can help them then have better people conversations.
I think it's an amazing tool for HR because there's a lot of documentation, a lot of strategy maps, a lot of days for work away, planning. I can see it, jump hoops for
HR.
But they're already overwhelmed. That's the problem.
Yeah.
They have too many things on their plate, and starting is a little bit hard to prioritize these things and try to get some things out of the way with AI would be amazing.
Again, you've hit the nail on the head. It is around people are too busy to investigate properly. However, what they don't realize is that if they take a step back and learn how to use AI effectively, the opportunities with it are just so incredible.
Yeah.
And I think we've neglected well-being for such a long time. There are some organizations that deal with it fantastically.
And then what are you scared of?
I'm old enough to know the Terminator films.
Yes.
And I can honestly say, and I've probably not said this out loud before, but at least once a week I wake up because I'm deep into AI, so I can see the things that are happening now. I wake up and I wonder where we're going to be in 2 years' time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time. It is already more intelligent than we are. Am I worried about it replacing job roles? Potentially, but I think job roles will change. Yeah.
And that's why HR needs to be on top of things, I think.
We do. It's an accident waiting to happen if HR are not jumping on board with it and at least putting some governance frameworks in place.
I'm so curious. I could ask you all day, but I have one question. Have you had a scenario where HR asks you to help train managers using it?
Not yet, no, but it is something that I offer. And I think it's because the stats tell us that HR, whilst they want to use AI, are not embracing it.
How can we help with that?
I think it's about understanding the use cases. I think, a lot of discussions that I have are around data privacy, trust. What happens? Are we going to suddenly find our organisation is caught up because there's been a big data breach, et cetera, et cetera? And I think for me, all I can keep doing is just highlighting the benefits.
And maybe the first thing to do is ask it about the security protocols, what is in place and what they should not put in, just learning by using it.
Absolutely. One of my accounts is a paid ChatGPT account, for example, and I create custom GPTs to do particular tasks, particular activities. And I help other people do that too. The very first thing that I put in place with that is security protocols for it. And it is about organizational wide understanding. What are your security protocols when it comes to this? Let's look at all of the accreditations, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of generic ones out there. Me personally, I'm starting to build AI agents. The biggest thing for me will be data security first.
Yeah. Do you think HR manager will trust more a supplier of specific AI services like an employee recruitment system? Do you think they're going to trust that more than doing this on their own?
Yes, for sure. I think, for example, recruitment systems, so an applicant tracking system that starts to slowly bring in AI-generated selection, criteria, etc. They are probably more inclined to trust that than doing it themselves. However, they still need to understand that a lot of it is still run through systems like ChatGPT.
Same systems, really.
Same system. It's just got a slightly different label, and it's got slightly, without being too technical, slightly different connections at the back end of it. Yeah. And we do know that some applicant tracking systems, as an example, are not as good as others. And if we start to then rely on data to do that, where's the human element? When it comes to recruitment, the joy used to be for me, up until even last year, of seeing that CV that popped up that actually didn't have much to do with the job role.
Yeah.
But there was just something about that CV and you just wanted to go and talk to that person.
Yeah.
Well, what happens with those systems that are AI generated that you don't even get to see that?
And if we go into the recruitment part of the job that HR teams are usually, number 1 or 2 in their priority list, what kind of a profile, like if you're hiring young people, young people are having a hard time getting a job. What profile, regarding this technology, do you suggest they look at? Are we changing the way we hire completely because of AI, or are we still going to look at the accreditations and education?
Really interesting concept there, actually. And that's a whole conversation in itself. I think we have AI models that are going to probably replace traditional education. My own personal opinion, just because somebody has got a certificate of competence, has gone to university to get a degree in XYZ, does not necessarily mean that they are competent within their job role. Now with AI, you can get it to program it. There's study modes on there. You can learn something a lot quicker, a lot faster through that system. I think younger people want more. Yes, they are struggling with job roles, but they want the employee experience. And that's something that AI can help with. If we take away all of the elements that we get caught up in and focus on what's the best possible employee experience that we can give this individual, how can we help them in their career? HR can and still is in a lot of places quite traditional in its approach. So it would be really interesting. The people that are doing the recruiting, are they still going to carry on with the traditional ways of recruiting when it's actually the people that are coming through that want so much more? Are they going to start searching for, and actually that's a really good idea, are younger people or certain groups of people, not necessarily young, going to start searching for organizations that have got that element of AI within their job descriptions?
Or just a more creative line of education that.
Absolutely.
And this goes in line with what we're saying, and I'm saying as a CEO. I truly believe that the brain is synthesizing information when you're moving instead of sitting down, and all of a sudden you can just speak to the AI to just record your thoughts and start processing a long-term kind of an idea instead of sitting there and just breaking through, endless amounts of paperwork.
Yeah. I am still a little bit traditional in some of what I do. I have still got lots of notebooks, and I don't think that's something that I'm ever going to get away from. I live near the beach in Bournemouth in the UK, which is right down the bottom. If I go to the beach for the day, I will get all sorts of ideas, and I would just talk into it, and I've just captured that idea, as you rightly said.
Yeah.
That is the way of the world.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I can then come back and think, I've got no idea what I said. So I could ask AI to summarize that, or I could say, given everything that I've told you today, can you repeat back what you understand by that? And can you give me some ideas on X, Y, Z? Or I've got this issue, or I've got that issue, or given all of our interactions, tell me something about myself that I might not know about myself or recognize.
Yeah. I highly recommend everyone who's listening, if they've been using AI at all, to ask about their blind spots and be brutally honest, like you said before, Lorraine. I think that's for HR managers to see what it can do for you, and then maybe you can offer it to others to try it out.
Absolutely. I've had organizations that have come to me and said, we want to do this as part of a team building activity, and I won't go into it. How can AI help us with this team building activity? It's enabled them to have more creative ways of sharing thoughts and how they can get more cohesive. Just how can we better understand people? And I'll use Chat GPT because that's the one that most people know about. If you've got your history switched on, it's great for analysing some of the things that you might have asked, that you've deleted, that you've forgotten about.
And it's just important for everybody to remember that it's almost like having an idiot savant in your pocket. It's a savant, but it doesn't really understand life. And that's where we come in with the prompts, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you for this. I have always a final question, which concerns well-being. Yes. What are your well-being strategies as a person? In what activity do you nurture your well-being?
Okay. Well, I need to go to the gym more. So that's something that I've just started taking up, Pilates and yoga.
Okay, well done.
A bit more. So that's something that I need to maintain and become more regular. I've said already that I live fairly close to the beach. And for me, just even having a walk, hearing the waves for 30 minutes just reminds me to be a bit more grounded. Walking in nature, I'm lucky that I've got a very large forest near here as well. So it's just reminding ourselves that we're not stuck with the technology. Switch off. A lot of reading as well.
Yeah.
From all sorts of things. However, the one thing that I will say, and I will be honest about, another thing for my well-being, I love watching YouTube videos about creative ways that technology is being used, etc. So that is part of my resilience as well.
Yeah, nice. And learning at the same time.
I'm getting older now, but I will never lose my thirst for learning.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lorraine. Do you have a good book to recommend after the summer?
A good book? Well, I'll tell you the book that I'm currently reading, actually, and I've got it just here. And I think it's a fairly old book, but it's the 101 Essays
Okay.
Change the way you think. And they're fairly short essays with all sorts of things, but it's really challenging my thought processes. That's the one that I would recommend for after the summer, because I think the summer is for romance novels or thrillers or books by the beach or to relax and chill out. But come September, October time, it's time to consider something else.
Thank you very much, Lorraine, for your hour here with me.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it.